Make sure you hit subscribe, ring that bell, and leave your abuse down in the comments. And if it looks good, it's from one of us family members.
The following podcast contains some strong language and some very average opinions. Any references to actual people are wildly inaccurate. It's probably best if you don't listen at all. The Roaring Peacock Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Roaring Peacock Youth Podcast. It is episode 2. First of all, thank you for anyone listening to episode 1. We've had a great response. It's been lovely to see all your comments and your views and all that sort of stuff on YouTube. That's brilliant. But of course, I'm your host, Ross. With me, as ever, is Cookie.
Hello.
And also here is Rob.
Afternoon, chaps.
Well, we started the week with a fantastic Leeds under-23s performance. We put Burnley to the sword. It looked like men against boys for a lot of that game, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely did. I mean, first half, we were 3-0 up relatively quickly, playing some great football. The man we featured last week, Sam Greenwood, getting on the score sheet before the man we will be featuring this week, Mr. Crysencio Summerville, smashing in an absolute banger of a hat-trick. So, yeah, big 4-1 win, keeping us top of Premier League 2. It's good to see, isn't it?
Yeah, fantastic performance. I thoroughly enjoyed everything about it, specifically the first 45. And as you say at the start of the pod there, huge thanks to everyone for the good response we got from the first pod. But it was pleasing to see that quite a lot of what we spoke about transpired in the first and second half of the match. So we didn't look completely stupid, did we? Talking about the under-23s and set off a bit of a trend, haven't we, this week? We
are trendsetters. Yeah, all the other Leeds pod seems to start suddenly talking about their youth, which is, I mean, it's good. It's good that the more people are talking about it.
Exactly, the more people talking about it, the better. And I think what was good for me was a really good under-23 performance against Burnley, who were the 6th in the league. So they're no jokes. They're not terrible. Oh no, Stoke was 6th in the league. And ignore me. That's next game. But getting a good performance after what felt like quite a few of the young lads being under the cosh, particularly on Twitter. I had a lot of noise about, are these under-23s ever going to be good enough to make the step up? The boys, not men. They're not going out on loan enough, and all of this stuff. And it was good to see him not only put in a good attacking performance, but someone who we will feature soon, I'm sure, Mr. Creswell, Charlie Creswell, was absolutely unreal in defence. And if anyone watching this gets the opportunity to go and have a look at the highlights on the Leeds United YouTube of the game, and I think someone on Twitter put together Creswell's highlights, that lad has unbelievable passing range, brilliant tackling ability, great reading of the game. I think he's an absolute future star.
Yeah, he seems to do what Liam Cooper does, doesn't he?
I loved how strong we were in the tackle, and I think that's a feature of Bielsa ball which you don't often see. Obviously, you've got, for example, in the first 11, KP or your anchor man, Klitsch is not afraid to, doesn't shirk a challenge. But for the youth side, they played such beautiful football in that first 45 against Burnley, but they were also so strong in the tackle, and rightly so, Cookie, like you say. For me, the standout performers were obviously the man we're going to feature today, Mr. Summerville, but also I thought Cresswell and McKinstry were absolutely solid. Down that left-hand side, we seemed to get a lot of productivity out of Huggins and McCarran, and then equally so on the right-hand side, you'd got Kene linking up with Drame, and the whole performance, I think the first 45 was just what typifies everything we were saying in the first pod about how we like the style, the ethos, the work ethic. You know, it seemed like they got an extra 10 to 20% on fitness, on speed, on technical ability, on whereabouts knowledge, reading the game. Yeah, it was. I couldn't sing the first 45 enough praises, and I thought the second 45, we just did what needed to be done. We steadied up, and like I say, brave in the tackle, and we read the game, and game management is obviously something that they talk about that's often missing, I think, from younger players. But I thought the game management in the second half was also equally as good. It wasn't that they took the foot off the pedal. It's just we did what we needed to do to keep Burnley at bay.
Yeah, it's pretty standard, isn't it? At any level of football, when you're 3-0 up at half-time, that you maybe take your foot off the gas a little bit in the second half. Bear in mind, this was an under-23s performance with, I don't think there was any first-team players in there, so it was very much a pure under-23s stroke, let's be honest, under-18s performance. There was quite a few youngsters. Maxine was involved in one of the goals later on, who is a very exciting under-18s prospect. So again, I'm sure we'll touch on him. I'm glad you mentioned Kenner, by the way, who obviously, for me, looks like an absolute talent, has come back from a very significant injury where we weren't really sure what side we'd see of him. And with you mentioning not being afraid of the tackle, that is a man who is very, very happy to get some aggression going. He's a very, very good player.
I mean, we committed, a fair amount of fouls. I think there's 11 fouls looking through, if memory serves, from the match stats I was doing before we did the pod. But, we did control possession. We had an eight advantage shots on target ratio against them. I think ours was 10, theirs was 2. We did, whilst commit the odd foul, we limited things like offsides. We only had one book in, so strong in the tackle, but clever with the aggressiveness and the tenacity that we showed in the game. It wasn't mismanaged aggression. It was controlled physical presence, which is what you need. Like you say, when you're 3-0 up, you want to shore up the defence and see out the game. So, solid performance.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. I think Creswell gets a lot of plaudits, but the guy next to him, Mullen, 16 years old.
Yeah.
He's got incredible hair. I'm massively jealous of that to start with. But he looks so comfortable on the ball for a 16-year-old playing on that sort of pitch as well, because it was a dreadful, dreadful pitch.
Yeah.
I've never seen him play before, and I was really impressed with him and how him and Creswell worked together to just snuff out. I mean, most of the dangers. Burnley scored one, but they were never looking like they were going to score more than that at all.
He's not normally in the team, is he? Because it's normally Creswell and Casey, and obviously Casey, I think, had been rested after Crawley. I was going to say two things there, which is one, it's good to see the resilience of the under-23s who played in the first team game and what was obviously quite demoralising, and Greenwood to get on the score sheet clearly doesn't impact his confidence and his capability. But with you saying Mullins there, I'm pretty sure, and tell me if I'm wrong, and I could be, off the top of my head, I think he's the lad who was at the Liverpool, who was ours, went to the Liverpool Academy as a Scottish international at youth level, and absolutely looks a talent. And we've literally just got him back. And he's been signed for the under-18s, and I think he was in the under-23s because of Casey playing, but you can see him stepping up that level without much issue. Yeah,
16 years old, and he looks that good on the ball. There was just an all-round great performance. You mentioned Rob McKinstry and McCarron. They're just so comfortable on the ball and running on that pitch as well. Just
the interplay was fantastic.
Yeah, and it's all Summerville will get all the plaudits, but I thought Bobby Camworth put a good performance in up front as well, leading the line. He did a lot of running for the guys behind him, Greenwood and Summerville especially. He's not a striker, is he, Camworth?
No, not typically.
No, he's he got so unlucky in the game. I'm not sure you've both watched it in full, but there were so many times where maybe just a slightly bad touch or the bounce of the pitch, because it was a pretty poor pitch, just didn't help him, or he made a really good run and a pass just didn't quite come his way. He looks, he's a very willing runner. He's very good at the linking up play. So I think he's got a decent future. Just question will be over if he is being converted to a striker. Does he have that finishing capability? I'm not sure. Obviously what we're doing with Greenwood in the under-23s at the moment is the standard experiment we see under Bielsa, which is converting people's positions and seeing what they can or can't do, and probably very similar going on with Camworth. And when we get onto Summerville, is another one who is very much a multi-positional player, can play anywhere from left wing to right wing to centre forward. From where he's been before.
I didn't really know where he was playing against Burnley. He was just all over the place. And
wherever
they didn't really know where
he wanted, Ross.
Basically,
When we spoke in the first pod as well about Drame, and we said up until his red card, he wasn't maybe living up to the hype of the money that we'd invested in him when we brought him in from Fulham. And then you look at the performances since then, and I think we waxed a bit lyrical about how he stepped up and performed. I thought he was fantastic as well. I really did. I know it was a bit Terry Butcher-esque, wasn't it, when he came back on with his head all bandaged up, and he was on the field, change a shirt, get on with it, a bit of blood, it doesn't matter. But that was the kind of comedy side. But the performance was really solid, and he was looking. What I really liked, he was looking always forward and upwards, which. Previously, I think he's tried to pass it back across the line, or I've seen him tippy-tap into play from midfield. But he was looking not for long balls, but he was looking for the more diagonal ball or across to the left, or switching with Summerville and kind of overlapping. And I haven't seen that much of him doing that previously, so that was really kind of interesting to see as well. I think it was a accomplished performance. You could pick any of them, really, couldn't you?
Yeah. He looked like a younger Luke Ayling, basically. He was bombing up and down that right wing, supporting Summerville a lot of the time. But those balls out of defence, it was him and Creswell. Creswell had a great knack of just stepping forward and just hitting that diagonal ball with the left foot across the pitch. It's so Liam Cooper-esque, but at his age to do that already and find a winger every time, it's really promising for the future. The way we play football.
His passing ability is immense, isn't it? I mean, you can tell his dad was not only involved in the academy and overseeing his progress, but that he's been brought up in a footballing family where, yes, you don't naturally always get the ability, but if you've got the ability and then you have someone day in, day out who is helping you to progress, I mean, he's essentially got a one-on-one coach with his dad, who obviously plays a very different position. He was a striker, wasn't he? But
I remember being really excited when we signed his dad as well.
Me too.
His kid is now this good at football.
Back when we had Creswell and Hulse. I was like, oh, this is going to tear up the championship. Yeah, mate, that didn't quite happen, did it? But I think he's got more natural ability than his dad probably had. The question for him, in particular, when we get on to focusing on him, I think will be, does he have the pace? I haven't seen that yet. I guess you don't really get tested too much under 23s because of the pace the game's played at. But he looks like he's got all of the capability. I'm sure he'll step up at some point.
Yeah, definitely. So that leaves us top of the table. We've played 12, won 8, drawn 1, lost 3. We're on a 4-game winning streak as well currently. Our next game is Stoke on Monday. They're currently 8th. They don't draw. They've played 11, they've won 5 and lost 6. Scored 18 and conceded 18. So it should be a good game. Their last game was a 4-3 win against West Brom just before Christmas. So they haven't played for a long time. So they could be rusty, which could be in our favour, definitely. Yeah,
and interestingly, their last one of their last games was against Burnley back in the middle of December, and they lost 1-0 to Burnley. Now, I know, like any league, you can't always go off the results matching up to something else, but it makes me feel like if we can absolutely hammer Burnley 4-1, the game before 7-1 with the goal scoring streak we're currently on, then we can soon ruin that goal difference for them.
I think with Stoke, again, limited visuals of what I've seen of them, highlights, reels, and that wise. But looking at the raw stats on paper, I think we've got the ability to pass them off the park. I think that will be the key to that one. And exactly what Cookie's just said, we're in a bit lethal form in front of goal. So if we convert the chances, which I don't doubt we'll create, no offence to Stoke under 23s, but I think we've got a better squad and we've got better players. Yeah, I think if we play the way we played against the previous 2 games, we can pass them. I mean, I think it's plus 75% plus passing accuracy in all of our under 23 games this season, whether we've had first 11s in or not. And I think against Burnley it was, again, over 390 completed passes in the game. So I think we've got the legs if we can pass them off the park a bit. Be interesting though, because obviously a lot of it with who comes in, would you, I mean, this is a question to you chaps, would you bring back in Casey and those kind of guys, or would you go with the same 11 that started against Burnley?
Ooh, what do you think, Cookie?
I think at youth level and the progression of that team, I think Casey's going to walk back into that team. Him and Creswell are the centre half pairing. So I absolutely think that he will walk back in, whether or not he had a knock after the game, which is, unlike Greenwood and a couple of others who went straight back into the under 23s. Yeah. I'm not sure whether he had a knock or whether he just wasn't feeling it, but I think he walked straight back into the team.
He was harrowed having to play in front of Casilla. That's what's wrong with him.
But face football. If he doesn't bring Costa on or Poveda today, for example, will they get a slot? I think.
Well, I was going to say you've got the other part, isn't it? Especially at centre half, where you're saying, so we know Llorente is fit, which is obviously a big thing. But it seems unlikely he'll play against Brighton today. It seems more likely we'll stick with what we've been doing with Ayling at centre half, strike up to the middle, and Cooper into that role. So could we see Llorente feature in the under 23s? We know that Bielsa had already talked about how he wants to see Llorente get those games. We saw he came straight in against Chelsea because of an emergency and injured himself. So do we want that to happen again? We don't. So I think you could potentially see Llorente in the game on Monday. So we'll have to see. I think with the under 23s, you're always going to see a bit of a mix-up and not so much consistency, because it is a real mix of developing players, both under 18s and under 23s, as well as rehab and or confidence building for first teamers who are either in and out or coming back from injury.
Of course.
So it'll be interesting to see, but you have got that core, haven't you, of that team. The spine of that team feels fairly consistent in that you've got Capriel in net, Creswell as your centre half, Greenwood up front, and then your midfield does tend to change around a little bit depending on what's going on with the first teamers, but those 3 in particular seem to play every game, and Gellart, obviously, who we will have to talk about at some point. Outstanding talent. I mean, how he's not got near the first team yet, I'm not sure. Not sure if he's picked up a little injury at the moment, because he wasn't obviously involved in the game on Monday, but he also wasn't involved at Crawley. So I'm assuming he's got a bit of a knock or something going on.
It's just it's good to see against Burnley these younger ones. So we're already talking about the youth squad, about the under-23s, but the under-18s that got a shout, because some of their competitions, if I'm quite right in thinking, have been cancelled, haven't they, due to the COVID crisis?
Youth Cup's just been cancelled, hasn't it? The FA.
We're talking about fitness and keeping people active and match sharp. Obviously, there's going to be this sandwich effect now where the under-23s has also got to bring up the under-18s. But like you say, your Llorentes or maybe your Costas Povedas that are not getting, your Davies are not getting first 11 action regularly, they've got to drop down. So the 18s coming up will also get that first team experience. You know, if you're one of these 16, 17-year-olds, you're dropping into the squad and all of a sudden we spoke about it in the first pod, you know, you're playing with Pablo or you're playing with Helder Costa. It will be good for natural development. And we've also mentioned that's critical factor that the style of play remains the same from 18s to 23s to first 11 if we stick with that Bielsa style.
I mean, how amazing must it be for your development if you are Creswell, Casey or Mullins, if Llorente comes into that under-23s to get his fitness and you are learning from a Spanish international centre-half with he's been a professional now for probably not far off 13 years, something like that, he is obviously going to help develop those guys. So it's an exciting prospect. I like the way that we're different to a lot of other clubs, particularly Premier League clubs, in how we use, and we touched on it last week, didn't we, about how we use the under-23s, how we mix up first teamers and helping aid their development, etc. So, exciting times.
And not to speak bad about the man himself, Mr. Marcelo Bielsa, but I thought the Crawley issue, which obviously I know we should touch on that because some of the under-23s did get a bit of a battering on social media. They're not good enough. They're miles away from first 11 quality, not Premier League players. Let's get them loaned out and so on. I thought tactically, potentially Bielsa got the timing of the subs wrong. When it's 0-0 and you're controlling the game, we weren't sparkling, I get that, but we were controlling the game. I question whether that was the right opportune moment to bring some of them young lads on. And people can say, well, it's only Crawley. But as we've all spoken about, they're still a football outfit. You know, you put some of these guys in, you know, Robbie Gotts has done well and the lads that are out on loan, but they're the first ones to tell you it's tough. It's tough down in those leagues, on those pitches. Yeah. You've got hungry professionals who want to win games, and Crawley wanted to beat us. And I don't know, for me, if it was the right chance to bring those youngsters on. So I'd say, for me, just to use this platform to air that opinion, I do think it was more of a reflection on maybe this tactics and style and the fact the first 11 players didn't step up as much, rather than the under-23s are simply just not good enough to beat Crawley Town.
Yeah, I mean, Bielsa called himself out on it, to be fair, that he got the subs wrong, that he didn't quite get that right. He wanted to give some of the youngsters experience. I think at the end of the day, whilst Crawley is an embarrassing result for us, and we don't want to touch on that too much, is that it's still good development for them, because that is what is going to help build your resilience. How do you come back from embarrassing defeats? How do you come back from feeling that low, impacting your own confidence? At that age, to get that experience in a first team setup, it'll make or break some people. And actually, that will help them know whether they are going to have that capability to step up to first team or not in the long run. Because the ones who don't have the mental resilience, which is such a big part of the modern game, they will crumble off the back of that. So we'll have to see. But I think, you know, there were some players involved in there who people are saying maybe they don't have the capability. They absolutely fucking do. You can't judge Greenwood, Huggins and the likes on what happened. I mean, if you've watched some of these lads in the under-23s, do they need some loan experience? I think they probably do. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about loans, but, you know, if we look at Robbie Gotts as a key one there, he was, Virgin on the first team, played against Arsenal in the Cup last year, looked fantastic.
On the bench every game.
Yeah, on the bench every game. He's gone out to, and from what I hear, it was his insistence. He wanted that experience. He's gone out to Lincoln, maybe struggled to break into the team because they're flying high in League One at the top of the league, but he's scored a goal just before he left, done all right. He's now going to Salford, where he'll have to deal with the dirty scummer ownership, but he'll be all right. But he's testing himself in a sort of playoff level League Two and building up his capability. So could we see some of these lads going out and doing it? Yeah, but Gotts, tell me if I'm wrong, I think he's 21. So some of these lads are 2-3 years younger than that. I think Gotts is 2021.
Yeah, and we were talking about an average age of 19, weren't we, last week? At the end of they were in 23, so they've got still 2 more years.
We've got to remember there really aren't many Woodgates and Rooneys and these kinds of players who really break into your first team 16, 17, 18, unless they are absolute fucking Wonderkids, which that's not to say some of these lads can't become top players. You look at James Milner, was obviously breaking through early, but he didn't go on to be everything we thought he would, but he's turned out to be a great player, and I think that lots of these lads can go on to be good players. Just maybe none of them are going to set the world on fire quite like a dirty Rooney, Derby County bastard.
I'd take a squad full of solid professionals than a flash in a pan Freddie Adu style. Someone that comes in and then we either ruin them too young. And I know it's a fine topic, isn't it? What age do you bring them in? And different clubs and different academies have got different opinions on it. I personally love the freedom we play in the under-23s. And I think that comes because there isn't that pressure of you're 18, 19 years old. You've got to go out in front of a Premier League crowd or the television cameras and perform. So I'd rather them build up their technical ability, game management, all the attributes that we associate with solid, good professional footballers in the under-23s, scoring goals for fun against Fulhams or Villas or whoever, winning some youth competitions, breaking in on the suspension, then progressing gradually. That's my preference. I think we tend to find a solid professional footballer rather than these flash in the pan.
What I find interesting is that there's a lot of pressure in England to send players out on loan for the development and all that kind of stuff. The best academy in the world, most successful in the last 10 years, in reality 10, 15 years, has been Barcelona's academy, hasn't it? Simple as that. Did you see Messi, Xavi and Iniesta and all of those guys going out on loan to second division Spanish teams to progress?
Throw them in the team,
I don't know all of the detail, but I don't think they did. I think that you can learn your trade in the academy. You can, if your academy is set up in the right way, help these guys to develop their natural talent, their creative side. That sometimes if you send a player who's a young, capable, let's say winger, for example, out to someone in League Two like Salford, in the example there, because of what's going on with Robbie Gotts, and I know he's not a winger, but you can stunt that creativity because actually it's all results driven. They struggle for money. They're not expected to take people on. If they lose the ball, they drop from the team. Do you want that to be the main part of their development, or would you rather they get the freedom of expression in under-23 football with less pressure to develop their skill set? I would argue that there needs to be a balance, but I would rather see them developing in the 23s, which I know a lot of people wouldn't, but that's my preference, especially with the way we mix up the first team in there.
Yeah, I think Mark Jackson's done a good job of... He's been through this. He went through this all himself, so he knows kind of the route and the route back down the football pyramid once you get to the top and how you stay there. So it's important that he gives these lessons to his kids. And I think they can learn stuff at League Two, but they can also learn stuff from the coaches in the academy and all the players around them.
Yeah. One thing I reckon Jacko in particular will be helpful for with the young lads is the setbacks. Let's be honest, he never quite made it as a regular in the first team, but he also knows what it's like to try and transition between the two. He knows what it's like to deal with setbacks and struggling, injuries, etc. So he's the perfect person for me to help these lads transition into successful first-team footballers. And he's doing a great job, like you say.
Yeah. So then our profile this week is going to be on the boy Summerville himself. He had a cracking game this weekend. That's kind of his first real breakout performance since he signed in the summer. He came over for a decent amount of money for us, especially for a youth player.
I mean, as always, I've done a bit of info on him if you'd like it. Yeah, just to sort of talk through him. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but he has had injuries, to be fair to him. Yeah. So, whilst it's his first breakout performance, he's not really had a run because he struggled since he came over with us. But you're not wrong. I mean, he's originally from Rotterdam in Holland, obviously, but has Surinamese heritage. So he could technically play for Suriname or the Netherlands. Not surprisingly, he's picked the Netherlands. He's played for them through under-16 to under-19 and actually won in England the under-18 Euros. With the Netherlands, he played in 5 out of the 6 games, scored a goal. He only got rested for 1 game in that. So it's really good to see that he's doing things and getting that experience of winning things at a young level. Primarily plays as a winger that we already touched on, preferably right side for him, but can play on the left, can play centre forward. He's quite a small lad, not tiny, but he's about 5'9", I think.
5'9", yeah.
Yeah. So it's obviously very good to see him involved at that level. And he scored quite nicely for us as England fans. Scored in a 3-0 victory in that Euros against Germany. always nice to see. So yeah, and he's obviously started off at Feyenoord, is where he started his professional career, his first professional terms, and then signed for us somewhere in the region, depending when you look at transfer market or other sources, somewhere between sort of 1 and 1.3 million, so not dissimilar to Gellert and Greenwood in terms of how much he's cost us.
Yeah.
He never made a first team appearance for Feyenoord. Get away. Sorry. Stupid cat. He never made a first team appearance for Feyenoord, which actually was linked to and suggests he's got a bit of a sassy side to the lad. He got suspended from Feyenoord for a training ground fight. So he got himself in a bit of bother, and that's why they sent him out to FC Dordrecht in the, I want to say, second division of Netherlands football in 2019. So he got an opportunity in the second tier over there in Dutch football. Made 18 appearances, scored 5 goals. So obviously showed his capability, and then got to step up a level up to the Eredivisie, so the top level with ADO Den Haag, if I'm saying that right. Apologies for anyone Dutch watching if they are. But still impressive. Not quite the same stats, but bear in mind at this point he's 17, 18 years old. Played 21 games in the top division with 2 goals and 3 assists, which for me is phenomenal. We managed to pinch him from under the noses of some other teams, which, bear in mind, we'd only just got promoted. He was linked with Wolves, with Rangers, and with RB Salzburg. So, no mean feat in terms of the teams who pinched him off, particularly Wolves, I think, probably been the Premier League rival, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, generally he's a tricky winger, full of tricks and able to take players on. He's fast as fuck, and got what I've seen described as an explosive shot in comparison to what you'd expect for his diminutive size. And he's been compared quite a lot with the likes of Jadon Sancho. I'm probably saying his name wrong. Is it Jadon Fucknose? And Raheem Sterling. Comfortable anywhere in the front three, just like them two. So yeah, he looks very, very good. I mean, Dirk Kuyt, who was involved in the Feyenoord youth setup when he was there, we'll obviously know him from Liverpool primarily. He was the under-19 coach, and he said he's a great talent, developed really well, fantastic passing movement, and no arguing with his capability on the ball. The only thing he needs to do to take the next step is just a few more bits of development around his being a more rounded game. So clearly a lot of highly, there's a lot of people who think very highly of him. I haven't gone with the quote, but there was, I'm going to try and remember, there was an English coach who went over to Holland. It might have been Steve McLaren, I can't remember. Yeah, he did somehow interacted with Summerville and said, look good, no, we're Alan Pardew. That were it. Alan Pardew was involved over there. And I kind of took his comments with a pinch of salt, but he was saying how capable Summerville is as well, that there was no one else at the club. And I think that was at ADO Den Haag, if I'm honest.
I think he was their manager, Pardew, yeah.
So where he said no one else at the club had his capability. No one else had his skill set. No one else could do the things he could do. Exactly. He was 18 at the time. He's only just turned 19 back end of October. So still a young lad.
Wow.
Very exciting.
Rob, thoughts on Summerville?
I like the look of him. Like I say, we have been limited to what we've seen of him, mainly with first 11 wingers stepping down. Jackson's been either given the directive or had to go with, putting Poveda or Costa in or experimenting, especially when he was out injured, as Cookie said. But, don't give me pelters on this one, but it Joey reminded me of, with the running, not necessarily the finishing, but with his running, reminded me of a kind of more controlled version of Sean Wright-Phillips. I just saw... he's got a slightly better ability to take people on, I hope, as he develops into a more mature player.
Final ball than Sean Wright.
Exactly. But he drew, for me, the way he can shift balance. Now, I must be honest, I didn't know his height. I think you said 5'9" there. Watching the game and seeing his position and his body shape when he's running, I thought he was smaller than that, because he seemed to have such a low center of gravity. And when he was doing that interplay that I was talking about earlier with Drame, or he was flicking balls off to Kenner and then coming back out to the right wing, his balance shifting off left foot to right foot just seemed, like second nature to him. Cookie, I don't know if you know, because I don't know. Is he ambidextrous? Is he both footed, or is he right footed?
Actually, couldn't find that information anywhere, if I'm honest with you. But bear in mind that he plays in the right wing. I would assume he's right footed, but if he plays right and left, You never know, do you? Does that mean that he
No.
is both-footed, or does that mean he's happy to cut inside onto his stronger foot? Haven't been able to find that information. So if anyone knows that, by the way, anyone who's followed Feyenoord, ADO Den Haag, or FC Dordrecht, I might be saying all of them wrong. Drop a comment, on the YouTube channel, and let us know if you know that information, because I'd be intrigued to know. I mean, I think the thing that impresses me most with him, by the way, is, let's remember that Feyenoord are a top Eredivisie team. There's no question about it. They're a big team. And he has sacked off being a first-team footballer in an Eredivisie team to come and play for our under-23s. That's a bold move. And some people might say that that's not a wise move, but I think that screams about his confidence and capability of breaking through into the first team. In fact, I saw an article that was written about how he is the biggest threat to Poveda breaking through, in the sense that he could be better than Poveda. And I'm not saying he is, but given the fact that he's been talked about in that vein, and where Poveda's come from and what he's showing as his capability is, that's an exciting prospect.
Yeah, the reason I asked about the ambidextrous with the foot side of things is, I mean, it seems like a really odd thing to be watching out for in a football game, but obviously now we are doing these podcasts. I'm trying to study these players, and if any of the players are listening, I'm not stalking you, I promise. But,
yeah, you are, don't lie.
I am really. Spygate V2. But I just was really kind of fascinated by his quick change, his durability of balance shift from left to right. It wasn't just that he could take players on. He glided past players, so he's fast, we know that. But he was able to shift his weight and wrong foot quite a lot of that Burnley defence. And I don't know a lot about, obviously, the Burnley under 23s. I don't know if those kind of back four are young lads from their first team subs, or, I don't really know enough. But he seemed to make them look beyond amateur, and again, no offense to them if they're listening, he just had them on toast all game, and like you say, he naturally deserves all the plaudits, because he not only had the running game and the ability to take people on, unlike my reference to Mr. Phillips, there was an end product, which was his 3 goals, which he thoroughly deserved as well.
It'll be exciting to see, which it looks inevitable that we're going to go up to Premier League Division 1 in the under-23s. Depending on who does break through to the first team training, whoever gets involved in that, whoever's left in the under-23s, it'll be interesting to see how they get on if we go up, which feels like we will, so it's more of a when than an if, against some of the, I guess, more well-known category A, big, bloody academies, your Man Cities, your Chelseas, your Man Uniteds, who have bought up half of the youth players in the world, which they might not be able to do anymore with good old Brexit, which might make that more difficult. But it'll be interesting to see how that compares. Because the one thing I do like about our academy is, whilst we've complemented it with players like Summerville from overseas academies, and we obviously had Stroik come from Ajax's, predominantly these are British, Scottish, Northern Irish, or even Irish and English young players. Most of them are British, which is exciting for us for the future of this club, because I think we've always had a history, haven't we, of, you mentioned McCarran and McKinstry, and it just makes me think of, some of the old school midfielders we've had, McAllister and Bremner and all of those likes, who've all come from Scotland and Ireland and all that kind of stuff, and all the heritage we have. So it's just good to keep that going throughout time. That excites me personally with our history.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're done, chaps. Any other business?
Do we need to preview Stoke? Have we done that?
Yeah, we can do. Yeah, they're sitting in 8th. Like I say, that they don't draw, they either win or they lose.
We do match predictions.
Yeah, let's do. I think we win.
Can be hard under 23 level, can't it? Fucking hell.
When you were talking about Scottish midfielders, then I really thought you were going to bust out a reference to someone like David Hopkin.
Mate, I hope none of our youth players have the fucking gap that lad had. I loved him, mate.
Your McAllisters and your David Hopkins of this. Yeah. I know he didn't come for our youth academy, but it was.
No, he was Palace, wasn't he? I don't know your academy, but he came from Palace, didn't he?
I think he played with Chelsea before that, did he not?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, God, imagine.
David Hopkins, latter of the fast.
I just realised, well, not once did I mention fucking Wales. Welsh people, if you're angry at me, comment. Fucking hell. So we're going to go on match predictions then for the under-23s against Stoke on Monday.
Heavy Leeds victory. I'll go something like 5-0, I think. I'll give them a go, 5-1.
What about you, Rob?
I'm going to be a bit more conservative. I'm going to say we'll probably win 3-1.
Yeah. I'm going to go in between you both, and I'm going to go for 4-0. And I'm going to go for a Greenwood hat-trick because I want to prove all the criticism wrong even further.
Fair enough. So, like I say, yeah, leave us a comment on our YouTube channel. We've got some good views on the last one. Leave us a comment if you want us to talk about any specific players. We will be putting polls up on the Roaring Peacock Twitter page and probably the Adelaide's Twitter page as well for kind of who we're going to profile in the future. But yeah, leave us some 5-star rates and reviews on iTunes and all the other places that podcasts are available. You can find me at Rossbell1984 on Twitter. Where can they find you, Cookie?
At Mickeldunians, a classic. Subscribe, motherfuckers.
And where can they find you, Rob?
I don't use YouTube, but on Twitter you can get me at JuicyRob, JuceeRob.
There you go. You can find us at Peacock's Raw on Twitter, and all the other podcasts will come out through that feed. There's loads of them. Just get involved, basically. We want to hear more from you guys about what you want us to talk about. Players, games, all that sort of stuff. We love talking about the kids, and it's an exciting time to be talking about them. So get involved with us. So until we're back next week to cover the Stoke victory, and looking forward to who we're playing after that. It's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Rob.
Goodbye.
And a goodbye from Cookie.
Goodbye.
And we'll see you later.
Ciao for now.
Most of our stats come from LUFC Stats or LUFC Data on Twitter. You should probably give them a follow as they're more interesting than us. A very special thanks to Adam Warner, Barney Stewart, Cookie Ewan and Howard Metcalf, Josh Pearson, Laura, Leon and Rob, The Light Show and all our family and friends.
So many games to play, don't care what's